So we are from Robot Foods. Um, we're Robot Food. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the time we're called a lot of other things at Robot Foods. Our name gets a little bit mixed up. So we're Robot Food, not the robots, robots food, robot foods, Robert's
Robert's
foods,
Foods. Personal
or
favourite.
Robbo's Poodles. But yeah, we're at Design Brands. What we do actually, sorry, yeah, we design brands that people want. We're no-brainers, can't live without brands with progressive ideas, with people and purpose behind them. And that sort of comes together a little something like this. Like these are the brands we work on. Some of them are of a very global stage. Some of them are literal like cherished, heartfelt moments of like British culture. Then some of them are like the smallest little brands ever, but they all have like this kind of same idea of like how can we bring the best out of them.
Yeah, all brands we've created completely ourselves, like Stories and Ink, which is our founder Simon's brand. So we kind of fully came up with that idea, used an insight of the fact that tattoo skincare is really underserviced. So we came up with Stories and Ink, and that's really like our founder's brand, and he owns that space. So we work with either big already existing conglomerates or even down to making our own brands because we kind of see that gap in the market where things need to exist and fill that gap.
Literally. And yeah, but fundamentally, who we are we're humans and we're not actually robots. It may be in our name, but it's certainly not our nature. We're opinionated, we're playful, and about as corporate as socks and sandals. And that's not very corporate. And yeah, I'm Craig. I'm one of the senior designers here at Robot Foods, and I worked on hip hop from start to finish. And this is Chloe.
Yeah, I'm creative strategist at Robot Food. Also working along hip hop from the full start to finish process. Obviously focusing in on that early stage of strategy, really trying to get under the skin of the brand and what we actually need to highlight, what's the key thread that needs to be pulled through. So yeah, we'll kind of take it away and start talking about hip hop, shall we?
Let's do
Enough about us. It's a bit more time to get a bit more real about pop. So that was the kind of main thing that we wanted to do when it came to hip hop. It was like really kind of getting real about what do we need to talk about? What's the main thing that we need to pull out about pop and culture? So hip hop, for those not aware, is actually one of the UK's fastest growing soft drinks. It's a natural, gut-friendly kombucha and living soda. It's made out of real ingredients, no sweeteners, none of the filler. So it's kind of a very alternative to those really diet sugars, lows that we see in the category. And it's all about taking on big mainstream pop and actually offering something that's actually really good for you, but still full of fun and flavour. So the brief in a nutshell that we were given was just about wanting to take on mainstream pop. So they wanted to go up against all of the big corporates, Coca-Cola. It wasn't just about standing out in their category themselves, but actually becoming a healthy alternative to also the big brands and big names out there. It's not just about the category itself. So starting off with the previous design, this is what we had to start with. And on first glance, it was actually quite intimidating because
it. It
there's
was already a
nothing,
cool brand.
yeah, there's nothing actually wrong with the brand. It looked really cool. We were like, why are we actually changing this? It looks amazing. It's got a lot of quirk to it. It felt very like reminiscent of craft beer and where that started out. It had this very quirky look and illustration style, and it felt quite cool in terms of the actual soft drink space. Because when you actually think about the healthy alternatives that you see on shelf nowadays, it's all very white and quite bland. It makes that healthy cues come out really predominantly. It's all trying to focus in on things that are clearly health cues, whereas this had that fun, playful element. So you might be probably asking yourselves why we're changing it in the first place. But when we start to zoom out, you can kind of see here there's actually a lineup of 3 different drinks within this range. So it was quite hard to shop and navigate, and it actually was quite confusing for consumers because it's hard to tell what was the difference between the kombucha or the CBD or the living soda. They all kind of look very similar. So it's not a rip it up and start it again job, but it was actually more about how do we make it feel a bit clearer? How do we make this ranging feel a bit different? How do we highlight the key things that we need to differentiate? What's the difference between kombucha? Why should I be choosing that over a living soda? And how do we make it feel just a bit more differentiated, a bit more easy to navigate, and then something that also then helps them with their growth as well, because they've got a lot of plans on growth and NPD. One of the great things about hip hop is that they're very reactive to changing flavors. So they don't just have their core range, they'll also come up with newer, different flavors off depending on
Yeah.
seasonality or whatever's trending. So it's like, if we're going to keep growing this big, how do we actually make a system that's going to be really understandable, and mainly just putting the consumers at the heart of it as well. How do we make this really clear to consumers? What's the difference between this kombucha versus this living soda versus the different things within the range, and how do we make it really clear for consumers shopping it at the other end?
Yeah, it's kind of like the recipe and the flavor was there, and it was just like, how do you kind of take it apart and put it back
Yeah,
together
the
again without
personality's all
thinking?
there. How do we just kind of fine tune that a little bit? So just looking at the bigger picture as well, we can kind of see the brand itself. Again, very clear, very understandable, but it's not saying anything as to why hip hop is different versus other drinks in the category. This kind of shop the new era of soda is something that we've seen across a lot of the competitors in their space. And actually, we're getting to the point where if we're wanting to take on the mainstream, is it actually a new era of soda? Is that what we're wanting to be? So we had to do a bit of a deep dive into what are the key points that we want to say, and how do we actually position this brand as something really different, and how are we actually going to go up against the big sodas and make it feel like something that you're going to choose over them as well. And just to zoom out as well, we also had a deep dive in what they actually had to say. It was quite clear that they had a really great story, but as you can see on the page, it's very information overload. They had a lot to say, almost too much to say. It wasn't the clearest. So we had to really kind of cherry pick and go through and be like, what are the things that are really going to resonate with consumers? What's that key message? What's going to be the thing that's going to make hip hop stand out to the others? Because we've got a whole lot of really interesting story. It was a founder brand that was made in the kitchen by Kenny and Emma, the founders. It was a really nice story, but it's a lot. And how do we actually make that something that's just like a really gettable instant message and fine tune it? So what we highlighted as the main problem with the brand was that pop isn't meant to be heavy. So hip hop needs to be a bit more true to its namesake. It's an alternative pop, not another problem. Yes, it's a healthy drink, but it's not ever going to be the healthiest drink out there. And pop is actually something that people purchase just for a lift, for a bit
Moment
of
of
fun.
joy.
Yeah, it's meant to be a perk you up. It's going to be that little treat. So it's not heavy at all. It's actually quite the opposite. So to be that category leader that they wanted to be, they really needed to tune that fresh perspective to stand for something different and actually acknowledge we're not going to change your life, but we are going to give you that little pick me up that you need at the end of the day. So we're just going to go through our process and what we kind of went through the different touch points of the hip hop rebrand. So starting off with the strategy. We won't go through all of the strategy because that could probably take the full 40 minutes of this call, but we thought we'd just kind of go through an overview. The strategy is usually like a 4-week process of stakeholder interviews, client workshops, and then fine-tuning that positioning. And it started off with this stakeholder interview that we had with Kenny and Emma, the founders of hip hop. And they really kind of inspired us from the off, really. They had this nice little quote where they spoke about it all started with IBS and a dream. They were really realistic, spoke about like we had really bad gut health and we needed to do something about it. So we got together in the kitchen and just started brewing pop that was going to help ourselves and then hopefully go on to help others. And they had this really honest northern grit. It was quite optimistic. It felt really radical.
Down
And
to earth.
yeah, it resonated with us instantly. Like they are the brand, they live and breathe it. Like how they talk and how they make you feel just from having that conversation is really like infatuating. You want to just be like them. Like it kind of feels quite contagious. They've got this really like northern spirit. It's really self-deprecating, but at the same time quite refreshing.
Yeah. And they
So
were just like the type of client that felt like they were up for things and like up for being challenged and up for being pushed, which is like something we love here. So for us, it was like a kind of match made in heaven, and obviously loved the outcome as well. So
we really want to make them the heart of the brand and capture that throughout as we went on as well. And then going on to the next stage, which was actually having the workshop. So this is just a snapshot of some of the things that we looked at in the workshop. So we did a bit of a deep dive on them and really dug into the skin of some of their challenges and their ambitions for the future, actually questioning where they want to be, having a look at the whole market and trying to pull out some key themes. So we're not going to go into all the nitty-gritty of this. Again, we could be here all day, but we've just pulled out some of the key insights from the workshop session that kind of really resonated with us and gave us that little fizzy feeling. So starting off, we kind of acknowledged that the soft drinks, especially the better for you drinks category, is just full of tropes. Like they're all kind of saying the same thing, whether it's trying to reassure consumers that it actually tastes good and it's not as gross as it sounds and the promise, or whether it's actually pulling that comparison of things that already feel familiar. So the soda you love, but better. It's kind of trying to reassure people it's no different from what you already know. Or there's also this kind of over-promised sort of good inside and out, and that it's actually going to change your life completely. And we felt like that was just a stretch too far, I think, especially from speaking to Kenny and Emma. Their whole idea was it's just really good pop. Like it isn't going to change your life, but it's just really good and it's really good for you. So actually, when you look at the category, they're all saying the same things, and we need to kind of show our opinion and how that's very different to the others.
Yeah.
And then we also looked at the different ways good for you drinks are taking on bigger pop, basically, and how do we be better than big? So again, there were two sort of ways of approaching this, and it was either taking on the mainstream by giving people something extra to worry about, so highlighting all the issues with other pop, like this example from Dash and Trip on the left-hand side here. It's kind of finally a drink to feel good about, but actually I didn't realize that I should feel bad about the other drinks that I'm drinking. So they're highlighting like how wine is bad for you, the calories, etc. So it's just kind of adding to that. Or then on the other side, it's kind of trying to make it feel like a whole new thing completely and leading with what they're not. So that new kind of soda, which was in that hip hop was actually already using, or that soda with soul, and trying to kind of do something that feels a bit more revolutionary to the category.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's really important to have a think about what's going on with consumers as well, what's actually motivated them, what do they care about. And the first thing we acknowledged was just that how IBS is actually getting rid of a lot of that stigma. It's being shown a lot more in like everyday areas. People are a lot more open to talking about it and actually having healthier conversations about gut health. We also acknowledged about how people are living longer, and ultimately, if we're living longer, we need to actually think about what we're putting into our bodies, and people are having a more of a realistic way of like, actually, if I want to live longer, I need to do something better, and actually acknowledging longevity lifestyles are here to stay. So how are we going to reevaluate our choices and make better decisions? And then finally, we kind of looked at the different ways that people are living healthy lifestyles, whether it's like their emotional or physical behaviors, and looking into the trends and the patterns that people are kind of getting together and how they're actually living this more holistic, healthy lifestyle. And it's really hit the mainstream that like your emotional and physical health are very intertwined. So how do we tune into that as well? And then we also looked at the culture that inspired our culture. So we really loved this double meaning of culture. Hip hop is a kombucha, so it's got natural cultures in there. It's all about that. And we really like wanted to dive into how culture goes beyond just the drink itself. How does our culture and our brand live the culture that's surrounding us? Emma and Kenny, like we say, had this very northern attitude. They really embraced Manchester when we
Proud
went.
of it.
They
Yeah.
love the Manchester life. So we were talking about how Manchester really is this kind of hive of activity. Obviously, it's got the Manchester Bee, which is really synonymous with the area, but it was all about that. It feels buzzing, it feels alive. There's a lot going on there.
It's a community.
Yeah, it's a full community. I think at the time Chanel had just done their recent fashion show in the Northern Quarter. So we found this little extract that was talking about why they chose to host it there. And it was all about because like Manchester felt very audacious and interesting. And that really kind of highlighted with the things we were saying about Kenny and Emma and their attitudes and how they were. And then with a name like hip hop, it was almost impossible to not have a look at the music scene as well and what's going out there in the music world. So alt pop has obviously been a very big thing at the moment. Everybody's having a brat summer. So I had a look into the definition of alt pop and what that actually meant. And it was a product with broad appeal made by people working outside the mainstream. And that felt like it really embodied what Kenny and Emma were all about. And also we deep dived a little bit more into hip hop, the music category, and just trying to think about, okay, how does that relate to us? Is there anything there? And there was this just really nice thing about it being a multicultural exchange because it brings multiple things together. It was bringing together MCing, rapping, DJing, and became a dominant cultural movement, which is exactly what hip hop want to embody.
Yeah.
And then this is our sort of brand on a page, the positioning that we pulled together. We won't go into too much detail, but we really like the idea that hip hop is this alternative pop with a refreshing attitude. It kind of captures what they are, what they're about. It's all about that really attitudinal brand, and just the fact that they want it to kind of not be on autopilot. They want to have that refreshing attitude and bring something fresh to the pop category. And then we also had our brand platform, which was Best Enjoyed Live, which was all about embracing these live experiences and helping people get off of that autopilot of every day and feel released from the pressures and actually encourage them to get to the real world and kind of be in those live moments together. So it was more like a reminder that things are best enjoyed live in that togetherness, and that hip hop is going to be at the center of that as well. It's really going to be that drink that kind of is in with you in those experiences.
Yeah, we're part of the culture as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, we're brewing a culture and we're also part of it. But the Mad Men moment, so they kept wanting to have this Mad Men moment and they didn't feel like they'd had it yet. So we really had to go back to, well, not the drawing board, but we had to have a little think about how can we express this to a consumer as well. So how do we take all of our strong things from the positioning and all of the things that we know and put it into a consumer facing perspective? We really like this gift because this was actually the moment in Mad Men where Don Draper thinks of the Coca-Cola ad, and that's the guys we're going up against.
That was very much Chloe in this moment as well.
We had the moment. But with alongside the copywriter Lizzie, we came up with this idea about Get Real, and it was all about bursting Big Pop's bubble, because we knew to stand out against the rest of the category, we really needed to ditch all of the cliches and gut puns and all of these kind of half-baked health claims and really kind of come up with something that felt really synonymous with the category and just get a bit more real about it. So to be that alternative, we needed to really think of something different, and Get Real was more of this like rallying cry that established them as the antithesis to mainstream pop. So really kind of not about taking things away, but adding it and giving them more real experiences. And once we had this moment, they really kind of felt like they got the brand a bit more. They got where we were going with it. Get Real was more about encompassing all of those real ingredients, the real flavor, the real attitude, and having something that can also call out the category and burst that Big Pop's bubble with that refreshing honesty as well. So it shows our frank northern attitude.
Yeah, and I think like that kind of like creatively spun off quite a lot. Like obviously we're about to move into concepts, but the Get Real really was like that kind of like for us as well. Yeah. So yeah, which brings us on nicely to the concept. So we are gonna we did have 4 concepts for the brand at the very beginning, and we're gonna run through them all and everything because we're kind of taken from different areas, and kind of the way at Robot Food we like to do it is kind of just like stretch and challenge per concept, like for the client and everything. And it's just about like that idea of like no one concept might be perfect at the very beginning, but it's like you can draw from different things from each concept and start to get a real sense of like how much the client wants to be challenged and how much like they see the brand as being able to get pushed into different areas. And yeah, it was just really an exciting one to work on as well. So concept 1, for that live feeling. Drinking manufactured pop is like watching Glasto on the telly. Good-ish, but won't scratch the itch. Drinking hip hop is like securing a prime spot at the main stage, crowd surfing to the front and getting invited up. Insert hero image. And the hero image is something like this. So yeah, I think it was just like, this one's all about channeling that kind of like culture and everything that basically Chloe's already spoken about. The things that hip hop is inspired by, the things that we draw inspiration from, and the things that like hip hop is like at the front and center of and everything. We're at these events where we've got the culture in our drinks and everything. It was about expressing that in a really dynamic and alive way that just really expressed the brand in an exciting format. I think with this fruit especially, as you could see from the previous logo when we were looking at the brand and everything, it was about taking that idea. So they had this kind of like O, as you can see, like this kind of shape, and it used to be the O, and we were like taking that idea of being like, oh yeah, that actually represents the mother and the kombuchas for the drinks and everything. It just had this really nice idea that that actually is the SCOBY, and that's like the culture. So we were literally like taking that idea and like brought it into this brand itself and how we expressed it in a new way. So do we actually become like that kind of spotlight moment? We're framing hip hop, the brand, with the culture around us, and how we could just start to play around with that as well. I think with this one as well, we're really challenging the notion of like, what does flavor actually look like when we were like thinking about it? We've really like got drawn into this kind of alternative lens. It's like, how can we express things a little bit differently? Can we be like leaning into kind of like print culture and everything, things that feel a little bit Manchester and stuff as well, and just started to have some fun about it and like see what the client was kind of vibing with as well, which was really fun. and yeah, how it can just start to come alive as well in different formats. So actually taking that kind of on-can expression, how do we start to just like boost that logo, take those patterns, go really full and big and bold with it, and just really like live and die by that kind of like alternative expression of brand. And then, yeah, as we start to move off of the packaging, it's like, again, dialing into that kind of like, what are we actually showing in this brand and everything? We're showing like the culture within us through like these kind of like live bubbling moments of the drinks itself, showing the refreshment. But it's all about basically the people that make up the brand and like the things that are alive and around us as well. Like we're all about those kind of like live moments at gigs and everything. We're all about the culture and like the arts and stuff. And it was just about expressing all those different things that kind of made this kind of like lovely layered piece of branding for us in this concept that just felt really alive.
Yeah, we really want to have like a very active messaging as well that kind of went with all of those live experiences. So that crack open, crack on. It's like a call to action and it feels very lively. It's encouraging people to kind of get on with the day. It's again not doing any of that over promising that we see in the category. It's kind of crack open your hip hop and crack on with your day. We're going to be at the center of that moment still with you. And yeah, like Craig said, like using that SCOBY as the symbol that kind of encapsulates culture, but also it's a spotlight and it really kind of heroes the brand and also the moment. So it has a nice connection between consumer and brand.
Yeah. And then again, I think with when we talk about this brand and everything, like it was very abundantly clear to us from Kenny and Emma that they wanted to be more than just a brand. So it's like tapping into that kind of like mindset of like how do you go beyond that as well? So it's about being part of the culture and it's about like drawing from the things that we're inspired by as well. So like obviously to be part of the culture, we had to be part of that kind of fashion moment and like allow people to basically represent the brand as much as like we want to represent the people. Like let them be our kind of like adverts as well.
Yeah.
So drawing on kind of like Manchester scene and everything, like a little bit of a bucket hat moment, like some like cool print things and how we could like actually like maybe partner with different artists and everything. Like I think it was like the concept was really coming alive through that kind of idea.
You could see a few of those bucket hats at the Manchester Oasis gig next
week. Literally. And then yeah, just as we move on to a digital expression as well, I think throughout the concepts, you'll see it's just about drawing from those different ways in which we could actually take these assets and just dial them up and dial them down in different ways. So with this one, for example, it's about taking that SCOBY shape and it's about running text around it, adding like a little bit of movement and a little bit of animation, really making that feel alive. But then that is also this kind of like framing device that allows us to put like a lens on the culture within it as well. And yeah, it was just about drawing from different things at that point.
It's giving Skims this image.
I know. To be fair, I did love the photography on this one. And then concept 2. So the cultured kind of pop. We're fizzy, not flat, spontaneous, not staged, us, not them. An indie independent against the big machine, forget sickly sweet pop, mindlessly manufactured for whoever will listen. This is hip, the cultured kind of pop. And that started to come alive, something like this. And yeah, I know a lot of people are probably like, ooh, that looks familiar. But yeah, I think with this one, again, we were trying to playing around with the idea of like, how do we take some of the assets that the brand currently have and play with them in different ways. So obviously we can see that the SCOBY within that kind of pop is also still represented there. But as a concept as well, it was all about this opening up and challenging what a brand mark does and do and everything. It's like, does a brand mark static or does a brand mark actually change per product and open up? And like, can it have that kind of use of like things going in the middle? Like, so the idea was like to open up hip hop and place the culture within the brand itself, and that comes through in like different flavors, like illustrations, like the actual people and like places that we represent. And yeah, the very early stages, this looks something like this. Yeah, I think we started to really love this idea of like once we opened up hip hop and like all those things that we can place in the center, it's like how do we actually articulate those in a really alternative fashion as well? Like so we're really like doubling down on that kind of idea of like what does kombucha look like? Is it actually these kind of like little cultures and like these like alternative expressions and like being quite digital with things and everything? And then when we move over to like the sodas, for example, we have like these kind of like illustrations which are very lo-fi, very edgy, very gritty, but still like denote some flavor in there as well. Like we've got like our little grapefruit with a straw poking through. We've got the cola, which is just bursting with flavor.
We're always trying to like encapsulate that feeling that it gives you when you drink it as well, and make it just feel a bit more like, if we spoke about it being really alive, what's the feeling? What does it make you feel like doing? Like the straw like going through the center of the grapefruit and stuff. It's like still touching on the fact that it's real fruit in there, but just being a bit more playful with it and being a bit more expressive.
Yeah. I think there were some things that were really working at this point for us as well. Like we had this kind of like framework, and obviously with all clients and with every project and everything, claims are super, super important. But we almost like created this kind of like architecture system in which point we can talk about all the things that the brand needs to talk about, but do it in a way where it's not actually impeding on the kind of overall brand first and like aesthetic attitude that we're basically trying to like create here. And yeah, that started to come alive on other touch points for like this kind of architecture system. You can sort of see how it tweaks and how it like expresses in different formats as well. Starting to play around with like the use of color. Like we love this idea of like seeding black throughout the brand, like basically just channeling that from where they currently had it and using it throughout all the typography, and how we could start to use these like kind of bold, energetic colors and everything to really dial up that kind of flavor and like alternative kind of attitude. I mean, you'll see in the brand world, we do start to use this kind of like really zingy yellow. And we were just like really channeling like Manchester and like your acid house and like all these kind of like alternative expressions and like drawn from different kind of parts of culture, and like how do we basically communicate that alternative feeling that the brand is all about?
Yeah, we got very confident with the messaging in this one as well, kind of that never less than decent. It's not doing what the overpromising of the categories, but it's also still using and channeling that northern attitude. And I don't know if Chapel Roan said this first or us, but this was a year ago. But obviously, that your favorite moments, favorite drink, very similar to again the music industry, kind of really hyping ourselves up in a way that's still quite relatable and not too pretentious.
Yeah, like that kind of never less than decent. I'm pretty sure that's a line that's still here,
Yeah,
but it
we still
just
use
summed it
them.
up perfectly.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, how we can actually start to bring this back to the people and like start to tap into like little bits of branded moments, little bits of merch and everything, how the brand can just basically be like, again, throughout the concepts, we're just challenging like how much a brand should be rigid or how much we can actually just really stretch the imagination of what we can become. And yeah, I think the website really expresses that kind of original concept as well, like the opening up of the hip hop, how we can place like the culture amongst it, and then how that kind of spans on to the drinks themselves. Which brings us nicely onto concept three. So hip hop is alt pop for cultured folk, for the headliners and the crowd surfers, for those who with taste, for those who prefer creating cultures over making molds, and know that whatever the time, whatever the moment, it's always better live. And that started to come alive a little something like this. So again, throughout the concepts, we're just playing around and challenging different things and everything. We really love this idea of like, can a logo actually itself be alive? And can that change? And it's like, again, taking that idea of like what the O represented previously in terms of the culture, and being that scope, it's like if we just replace that and replace that with multiple different things, then that again is still bringing the culture into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like a really nice concept in that sense.
Yeah, we're really tuned into like pop art and that sort of world here as well. And it was just like permission to get a bit more playful. Again, it was pushing the client a lot further than they probably used to, but it was just trying to think about how can the logo actually always be changing? How can we actually be something that's quite expressive? How can we use like different elements to add an element of fun throughout the brand and on every product and pack as well?
Totally. And I think, yeah, on this one, it really does show like how we were going really big with the brand and really leaning into like this kind of alternative aesthetic, especially when we're drawing on the kind of right hand side and we're actually looking at cola and stuff. We were trying to like imagine like what does cola actually look like?
I like what you said about it being like a call out to like Coca-Cola and actually saying like the devil is calling like the mainstream pop conglomerate quite
yeah,
evil.
we were teetering a little bit. Literally, like we were just like, how can we like basically take this back and like have like a little jab at the big guys and everything? So yeah, having a bit of fun with it, and again, just like really channeling like a new progressive look and feel for the brand, and how that again channels out into different aspects as well, going really big and unapologetic. Like if we are representing like pink grapefruit, it should be a different type of pink grapefruit. It should be like zingy, it should be alive. Like you can almost imagine how that would animate as well. And then like it's shown like it's a different taste and different way of doing things. And yeah, on top of this, it was all about framing the people as well, and how we bring them into it. It's like if we're an alternative brand, we show alternative people, and then they are the people in our brand as well. And again, just showing how that kind of we can really start to use black as a complementary detail on top of color, and then this obviously seeds into the final product as well. But I think we're really starting to understand the notion of like what colors really were working for the brand, etc. At this point.
Yeah, and Alive and Sipping again, like our call to action is something that has gone through to the late stages. It's something they still use today, and it was just a nice way to kind of talk about the pop being alive and kicking, but obviously sipping is more of that relating to the consumers and putting it back to them and feeling like they're a part of it as well.
Yeah. And again, some lovely merch to really bring it to life. I mean, like there's some pretty awesome lines in this one. Like it's not, if it's not live, it's dead. Obviously relating back to live cultures. And then just like cultured, like I really liked it, everything, that brevity. And again, how we can bring this to life digitally. Like it's about, can we again play with the brand mark, open it up, like start to place the culture and the people and the everything between the two P's and everything that replaces what's on pack and everything. Just really having a lot of fun and like being like a little bit rule breaking with things and challenge. So concept 4, sorry, I realize I'm going a lot deep. Sip hip, go pop. So the fizz of anticipation, the rumbling crowd, the split second before the beat drops, that's pop. To get there, sip hip, obviously. So again, we were just like challenging the notion of a brand being static and how we can start to bring together these kind of different draws of culture and these different ways in which we can express the brand, bring it to life, and just like it's not just one expression, it's not one flavor, it's like all these different factors that go into it. And I think we're really liking the idea of like the kind of ways in which we can draw from culture. So like on pink grapefruit, whether it's pop art, on classic cola, do we do like a little bit of a pixel thing and everything because it's like quite vintage and it's OG and it's old. And then like ginger and yuzu, do we really lean into like that kind of like aesthetic of street culture and go like a little bit of spray art and everything? But hip is like this kind of constant, and then pop is forever popping, forever changing, and it just gives you like these constant expression and this kind of way in which you can open the brand up into different things. And again, how we can just do that on the additional packaging as well. So really love this kind of like use of like sip hip go pop, sip hip go pop and everything. And then basically on this one, just using everything as like a mini billboard, which was cool.
It was a nice way to kind of get a lot of the really interesting lines across as well. We had that made not manufactured, which came from the OG positioning. It was kind of calling out the category again, being attitudinal, speaking to the fact that this is like a homebrewed, homemade kombucha. So yeah, it was just a nice way to get that attitude across and like make it feel really pop in and going with the whole pop of the expression.
And yeah, I think that alternative attitude, we're really channeling that as well when we move into the brand world. It's like given that kind of like white and black, like background aesthetic, and then how we can bring the personality always through that kind of typography of pop. And then yeah, just really letting it come to life through that kind of like, it was a simple idea, but it really kind of just came together in that sense.
Yeah, final push.
And again, always laying back into some additional elements and how that starts to come to life. I mean, there's a really nice one. I think like on the right hand side, that kind of unprocessed, unscripted, unreal, it really relates back to the product, but also like the moments in which we're trying to achieve as well. Like the photography was always like with the product in hand, and it was never polished and perfect like the bigger brands of the world and everything. It was always about those kind of real moments. And yeah, how that starts to come alive in a digital expression as well, which was starting to play into kind of the right notes. And we were basically from all the concepts, like building up to the big concept lineup. And I think with everything, we got a lot of like lovely praise and a lot of things right and everything. And there was like a lot of things that we could learn from as well. So concept 2 was ended up being like our approach. And the client basically came back to us with, we love like this kind of like use of like alternative expression. We're really dialing into culture and stuff and everything. But I think we got really excited at some times and everything, and we were really leaning into like some of these like more alternative things, but there was like a slight commerciality that we had to learn from. Yeah. But I think it showed like all the things that we could do and all the things the brand could become and everything. So it definitely was like, it all made this kind of recipe about how we have built the brand now and gone forwards. And it was better. I mean, it's better to push too far than not to push far at all because
Yeah.
you can always draw backwards.
I think we always end up with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we end up kind of taking elements from each, which is kind of what we did here as well. Because I think we had like the basics down in concept too, but there were still elements of the real fruit and things that they loved seeing in the other areas, which we wanted to
Yeah, 100%.
develop.
Which brings us nicely onto design development. So this is just like a nice wee short section, but it just shows some of the kind of interesting things that we just like basically done to bring the brand to where it is today. And then we get onto the nice, sexy energies. So moving on from where we were, we had like our brand mark as it stood on the concept stage. And then we were basically just exploring like how do we develop this brand mark? How do we start to bring in like these kind of like rules? How do we draw back to where the brand previously was? Like what's pushing it too far? Are we losing some of that personality? Do we start to like open up like on option 3, for example, where like the brand mark was opened up previously and everything, but are we still losing some of that kind of like alternativeness that were built in as well? And I think when we were just like placing this on can, we're looking back at the old logo itself and everything, it became abundantly clear that we were arriving somewhere really nice in terms of option 2. And I think when you just see these together, it shows like we have channeled everything that was in that previous brand mark, but just given it a really modern aesthetic.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
goes, it goes with the
boldened it up.
attitude.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like obviously it was all about being really northern, really bold, really attitudinal. And I think there's something about the original mark that feels a bit apologetic when you see it next to each
Mm-hmm.
other. And now it feels like a stamp. It's like a really like mark of authority.
Yeah, it's kind of got that like kind of lo-fi digital
Mm.
like look and feel, and that's what we were kind of hoping to channel. Which brought us obviously to our lovely logo suite, which is developed for the client today. And obviously on primary logo, it's got in brackets like our dynamic logo, which obviously opens up to the idea that this should always be a moving mark as well. And then just yeah, some of the fundamentals about like can architecture and everything. Obviously, we were talking before we had a system, and that was one of the things that we really liked from the concept that we took forward. And we obviously just like perfected that, done like little nuances and little changes to things, and kind of explored what is the best way for that to express on can and everything, just some of the smaller details.
Yeah, even down to the messaging again here, it's all about what's actually going to be important to consumers. I think before we again was a little bit more apologetic with the low in sugar, high in fiber, whereas actually we changed it up and we're like, actually no, this is live cultures, it's good friendly, it's real fruit, no sweeteners, getting a bit more like straightforward with our messaging, making it really clear and thinking about what does a consumer need to know instantly to make them pick it up on shelves, because ultimately these cans are usually seen in like the grab and go like meal deal sections and things like that. So how do we make it an instant like I get what this is about and I want to pick it up and take it home?
Yeah. Which obviously arrived us at a lovely area where we've created complete harmony and got this lovely framework in place and really a brand first approach. But obviously, the big question is what goes between that brand. So obviously, the client like fed into quite a bit in terms of they wanted to show the flavor and like I mean there was like a perfect line and everything. It's like this is the best quality and everything. It's literally like the taste is unreal and everything, and it's like it's something we just needed to bring back, and it's all about that kind of get real proposition, being like bring in the realness and show the fruit. So we went on a lovely illustration journey because, as everyone knows, there's not one singular way of doing this. So just like with any project, it's just about trial and error. Like we were just like playing with things, seeing what felt right. Like, do we really lean into like the kind of more traditional expression of fruit, like being a bit more natural, like on the second option, or do we actually bring in like the realness of the fruit and go for like a kind of like digital, like kind of like half tone aesthetic, bringing in a little bit of alternative pop, a little bit of link back to Manchester? And then like on the other side, do we go really playful and really fun? Like, do we actually bring the cans and the fruits to life? Do they become real themselves? But and yeah, we were just like we spoke about all this, all these different things and all these different ways and we can play it, and like we just like batted it back in between everyone.
Yeah, they fully gave us permission to play and actually kind of go on a bit of a experimental journey with this, because we didn't have the right answer, but we needed to kind of go through every single one of these options to get to what the client liked as well. Because I think sometimes they just need to see it to believe it
Oh
almost.
yeah.
So
And then that ultimately got us where we stand today. So this was one of the routes that was on the previous as well. But it's like this kind of idea of like this perfectly imperfect fruit. It's kind of like being squeezed, it's been twisted, it's been squashed, and like it's almost like alive and it's moving and everything. And I think that's really expressed when we get to like the very end results as well, when it comes alive digitally. But even on pack, we wanted to get across that idea of like this is all being squashed and pressed, and this is what is going into your can. And yeah, developed that out as like a little bit of an illustration house as well. I think at this point we were all feeling really, really, really happy. Like the colors and everything were just coming together, and the illustrations, yeah, it just felt like everything was falling into place. And yeah, that obviously inspired our kind of color suite as well when we were looking at the illustrations. So flavor, colors on the right hand side, but we obviously needed this kind of like backdrop for the brands, and it was always going to be like this kind of like black and the white and the cream and everything as well. And that's ultimately where we ended up with all the packaging. But as we know, a brand isn't just packaging. So I think as well, it was important for us to kind of take that step forward with the brand as well and be like, how do we translate this into the bigger brand and the bigger thinking as well? So if this is the front of our can, it's all about taking that idea, expressing it across the other packs and creating this kind of system where the architecture itself is always present. So on the multis, it's about taking those kind of claims and running them up on the left and the right. And then also how we can be playful with that as well. Like we've got like that kind of like X down at the bottom corner. Can that become like our ×4? It's just like tiny little nuggets of ideas. And when the can itself is so bold and expressive, it's about placing that can right at the middle and the heart of that kind of multi-pack and everything. Because why double up and load up more claims or anything when you can just be super bold and super impactful with it? And I think the same is expressing the SRPs. Everyone in the world will know SRPs are your enemy. But at the same time, it could be your best friend. Like in this example, it was just like a blessing that obviously what we're covering up is pop, that we could be like hip hop and just be really bold and considered. And that lines up to where the cans would be saying that as well. And it was just like a real nice moment of this system actually really works, and it's really practical for the brand as well, both on and off pack. And this sort of shows how it's all a living, breathing element in that sense as well, like the architecture.
And then we also thought about the different social ads and how we can bring it to life through the messaging. Just trying to give them a bit more of a different examples of if we've got a bit more space and we're actually encouraging people to shop, we need that call to action. We need to give people that understanding of the brand and what it has to offer versus others. So we went with this fizz without fizzle and kind of calling out the category again and really highlighting our get real message. And then in other areas, just really reiterating get real or kind of highlighting the real flavors and the real ingredients within the product as well. And that kind of applied throughout all of the social messaging.
Yeah.
And hopefully you've probably seen these ads out there because
they're everywhere.
We get served them every single day now. I think there's not a day that goes by that we don't see a hip hop ad in the world.
I think what was important for us as well is like the system was all about, as Chloe was saying, when you've got longer term messages, then you can use it to squeeze down a smaller image on there, or you go really big with the image and then the framework of the text allows you to actually place that at the heart of it, or do you just go really graphic and bold like the can itself and everything? It was about creating a system that didn't feel overly rigid, but it's always an expression of what is on pack, and on pack should be an expression of what's off pack. It's like a living, breathing brand in that sense. It should relate to one another in perfect harmony. Which brings us on lovely to the executions itself. And I think for the majority, we're just going to let these speak for themselves, as it's just everything we've spoken about all brought together in a gorgeous way. And yeah, and then we'll just jump to that.
So we wanted to kind of use the get real message and everything we'd spoke about and give it more of a consumer facing story that we can use on pack or out in the real world. So this sort of brand story really just encapsulates our attitude, like who wants fake when you can get real, hip hop being that drink without drawbacks, fizz for feeling alive, and really just kind of highlighting all of the core benefits about it being a real fruit, a real flavor, real cultures. And just having that attitude again at the end as well, it's just really good pop, and that's something that Kenny and Emma kept saying to us, like it's not that deep, it's just really good pop. So it's a choice that'll knock your socks off, crack open and crack on. And we use a lot of like different parts of this messaging throughout all of the like consumer facing touch points as well.
Yeah. And yeah, how that just starts to come alive as well. And how, yeah, the lines are amazing. And it's like, how do we just give them the moment to really speak for the brand? We're all about being bold, and it's just about being that kind of unapologetic self.
Yeah, I think the cans were obviously really static, but I think the motion really just kind of brings out that liveliness and everything we were trying to encapsulate as well.
Yeah. And then, yeah, you can just sort of see everything as like a little snapshot here about how we start to bring in that photography, how we start to use those lines, and really like always leaning on the black, but again, bringing in the flavor, bringing in the color and everything. Like it's a poppy brand, and that's what we're all about. And again, how it just starts to come alive in different formats. And yeah, I think the overall motion and everything as well, like it just really starts to embody everything. And yeah, I'll just quickly flick through these because I realize we've been chatting man. But yeah, all the merch, all the cool things the brand can do and how they can bring it to life as well, be it at festivals, etc. And yeah, how we can actually be present in Manchester, how we can lean on to, again, we spoke a lot about merch and everything. It was definitely one of our clear deliverables for the brand and everything, how we can lean into that kind of culture as well and where we're drawing from. And just like, yeah, channeling the brand mark, how we can use it in different ways, placing Get Real between it and everything, still challenging everything in terms of like, where does the brand go and everything. But yeah, letting them have fun with it as well, fundamentally. That was what it was all about. And yeah, how we can bring in lots of lovely copy as well. Alive and sipping is just one of the best lines on the project.
Even like just using words like chuffing and stuff, it just feels really northern, and the bosh and things like that. I think we just got a really good, like we're speaking their language and it just feels really down to earth.
And yeah, how it comes alive in the kind of final packaging, and then also web. Just again, being really playful with it. And yeah, a lot of fun was had with the web designs, how we could start to play around with the way in which the cans are actually alive and the movement and everything that can go into the brand. And our last slide is just the brand itself and like all the results that have happened from it and everything. So yeah, I mean, like the client, as we've mentioned, everything, like they're super lovely and like they're got a great team as well. And they're just taking this and running with it. And it's like so amazing to see all the things that are happening with the brand. Featured in Dialine's kind of top 5 last year. It's been listed in Sainsbury's in the meal deal section.
Yeah, so I think they'd already secured like new listings anyway, like prior to this, but now I think they've got into that meal deal section, which was the ultimate goal, like having that grab and go opportunity as well. They even featured in Co-op's pop-up at Glasgow, which is great. Cool. Yeah, we were all about that live experience, obviously, so them being at Glasgow felt like a
full circle, yeah.
And again, just being out there and in like culture. So I think at the Manchester Marathon, they did a little pop-up collab with Lululemon, which was great, and they've just been featured in a lot of like amazing articles and stuff, and we've seen a lot of praise.
Yeah, and this is a testament to the team at Hip Hop, just like really channeling the idea of hip hop and all the things that were spoken about and everything, and they've just really
ran with it,
and like it's just awesome to see. So yeah, but yeah, thank you guys very much for hearing us gab away.